Welcome to Divine Times. This is Hilton Milan, and we have such an incredible show for you today. Our special mystery guest is known as Unstoppable Tracy. And as the name implies, because she's been a world adventurer and athlete, a humanitarian, serving, troubled countries and making a difference as a trainer. She's also climbed mountains. She's an international business consultant and coach, plus a best-selling author. I actually am not doing any justice by doing anything but asking her to come on stage here with us. Tracy.
Hello, Hilton. It's wonderful to see you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, what a magnificent hugger you are.
Oh, wait, come over here. Oh, yay. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Hilton.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Yeah, please have a seat.
Okay, here we go. Let gravity do its work.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
And you are truly such a magnificent light. Thank you for coming.
Hilton, it's an honor to be here.
I had the privilege of meeting you a couple of months ago.
Yes.
I was asked to listen to one of your speeches at one of the Toronto clubs, and I was so wowed by that.
Oh.
I realized that I had to connect with you and invite you onto the show. And actually, I have so much I wish to learn from you, and I think our audiences worldwide can learn so much because, as you've taken the title of Unstoppable Tracy.
Duh. It's been handed to me. It's followed me.
Yes.
Yes, but I can see where divine times come from with you. We can learn a lot from each other.
Truly, truly.
Yeah.
And it seems your presence is truly divine because you've not let yourself be stopped.
Nope.
When I first met you, I went to shake your hand.
Yes.
And I didn't see that there was any difference because I don't have the same visual acuity as most people.
Yeah.
And we both giggled.
Yes.
It was so delightful.
Yes.
And you're so clean about just being as incredible as you can.
No.
And it's an inspiration.
Well, thank you. I mean, what a bonus to go to shake hands and instead this handsome man just caresses your arm. It was perfect. While you were looking for my hand, I didn't want to confess. I was just going to let you keep looking, see how far you go.
Well, what an incredible beginning.
It really was.
And speaking of beginnings, how did you come to be so unstoppable? Because all the odds would seem to be against you.
I am so lucky to have been born exactly the way I was. I think because I was just a little girl and I just want to go play on the lawn where all the other kids are, right?
Yes.
And I'm not being a hero. I'm just a kid that wants to play.
Yes.
So in order to play, I had to do whatever it took to get over to that lawn. And I remember my mom, she put out like a blanket on my lawn. I didn't have my legs on. And to get over there, I had to just roll down my lawn, and then there was this skateboard. I'm like, okay, I can use my long arm to skateboard over. And then I just sort of rolled up the lawn next door to play with the kids. And
Holy.
it was like, and that's kind of what the kids said, holy. But the reality was, I'm like, hey, I'm Tracy, I just want to play.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And they were over it, right? And we just played. But so often with kids and even as adults, we support each other in what seems like realistic, right? And I like to see a big red X through that word realistic because anything is possible, right?
Yes, yes.
And so I wasn't being a hero. I just wanted to play.
Yes.
And I got to learn to play as a child or as an adult in the adult world. To play, you've got to just do whatever it takes.
Yes. So in your beginnings then, you're I guess a four-way amputee?
That's right. So both legs above knees.
Yes.
And my left arm is missing above elbow.
Yes.
And then I'm missing my fingers on my right arm.
All right. And was this how did that happen that you came out so special?
Well, and that's such a good question because everybody asks it, including the doctors. Nobody knows how this happened. I'm too young for, a long time ago there was a thalidomide drug, and that's not me.
Okay.
I'm not the thalidomide drug.
Yes.
It just a fluke. And my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my cousins, my niece, my nephew, no one else in my family was born an amputee. But no one else in my family got their Bachelor of Education or their Master's or have taught in Uganda and Mexico and Nepal or climb the Himalayas or fly or skydive or scuba dive or sail or ski or...
Yeah, actually, you're a bronze-winning downhill skier.
It's true. It's true. Yes, but my big claim to fame
Yes.
is sailing, is World Cup regattas. Sailing, and recently I was both at the Paralympic trials for the 2012
Yes.
for London and the trials for Rio 2016.
Yes.
But to get there, I kind of was like, who you surround yourself with is who you become.
Yes.
And I thought, well, to beat my Paralympic companions, then I'm going to sail with the gold Olympians, just get trained by the able-bodied gold Olympic world.
Yes.
And so I ended up going to World Cup regattas in Melbourne and Miami, these Olympic class regattas, and there were 27 men on the line, all big and tall like you, and big muscular Viking-like fellas.
Yes.
And there were 3 women at one of those regattas, and I was one of those 3 women.
Oh my gosh.
And no one was missing their arms and their legs, right? They were all able-bodied, and here's me, World Cup regatta sailor, that when I learned to sail, because I don't have my legs, I was falling out of the boat. I spent most of the time in the water my first summer. I didn't even get my white sail level 1. And how many of us, right, the divine times, how many of us feel like we're falling out of the boat, feel like we're falling in the water, and maybe come to the conclusion, maybe this isn't for me. Right? Because of the struggle, because of the wipeouts, because of the frustrations. But I just knew I was going to sail, right? It's a struggle to eat, and a struggle to do my ponytail, and a struggle to do up a button. So for me, just things being a little troublesome.
That's normal for you.
Yeah.
You just take it with, okay, I'm going to do this.
I got to do this, and I keep going till I get it done. And so that's why I'm so blessed to be born this way. Because I just do it till I get it done, right? And so I think because of that, it's given me a gift forever.
So clearly you're a messenger now and an inspiration.
Aw.
Was that always the case? Like when you were 3, 4, 5, 10, like how
Does this happen,
when
right?
do you remember your breakthroughs? In the face of what seems like, such challenges.
I remember the street I grew up on. Everyone was from somewhere else. And we were all part of this Ontario lottery of housing, right? Affordable housing. And so you had to have a certain income level. You had to have basically no real family in Canada, and you had to have a couple of kids under a certain age. And that meant that everybody on my street, we all felt like family because we didn't have any relatives in the country. And there's a whole bunch of us under the age of 9 years old. So when it was time to go to school, kindergarten, the first day, I felt like I was going to school with all my cousins, right? Because we spent Ramadan and Hanukkah and Christmas and all of the holidays together. It took me a long time to figure out that everybody doesn't celebrate all of the holidays together, right? But that's just what we did on my street. And so we go there and we arrive, and the school administrator turns to my mom with all of my little friends around me and says, "I'm sorry, you can't go to this school." And I just, even right now, I just felt my stomach go, whew. You're 5 years old and you can't imagine not going to school with your friends. And I learned a valuable lesson from my mom, and what she did that day, she wasn't all mama bear. She was really calm, she's really collected, and she spoke to his listening, right? And she just asked him, "How come?" Non-judgmentally. And, it was before Terry Fox and before Rick Hansen did 2 years, 2 months, 2 days around the world. So there wasn't the legislation, and there weren't educational assistants and personal support workers in the early 70s when I was in kindergarten. And so he says, there's one teacher, and there's 30 kids, right? How is she going to support Tracy without her arms and her legs? And it kind of makes sense, right? A four-way amputee and 30 kids all by herself.
Yeah.
And there's sirens of approval out there on the street saying, that's just nutters, right?
Yeah.
So my mom, she didn't counteroffer, she can do it. She didn't try to convince him or sell him on anything.
Yeah.
She just said, how about we try Tracy just for 1 week?
Yes.
And if it doesn't work out, no problem, right? We just go to another school.
Yes.
And so she spoke to his listening, right? She didn't try to convince him. He was worried about being stuck with me. And so what I learned that day is that no, N-O, just means they don't know. K-N-O-W, right? So I'm 5 years old. No is no. They just don't know.
Yes.
And speak to people's listening. And so when the principal ran outside at recess time to see if I made it outside, and by then he really hopes that I did make it outside, I wasn't there.
Oh.
And he was disappointed, right? He didn't want to tell my mom that I wasn't going to be able to stay.
Yes.
So he ran inside and he found my teacher to find out what happened.
Yeah.
And he said, couldn't Tracy tie her shoelaces? Right, because I don't have my hands.
Yes, yes.
And she's like, no, Tracy was the first one with her shoelaces tied. And he's like, well, then how come she wasn't outside? None of the 30 other kids could tie their shoelaces. And so I was busy tying all of the kids' shoelaces. And so by the time the recess bell went off 15 minutes later, I had never made it outside.
Oh my gosh.
But, so what's you talk about when did you know you were a leader, you were influential, and I was just a kid that wanted to be in that class.
Yes.
I didn't plan on being the shoelace leader. Right? I just wanted to be in kindergarten with my friends.
Yeah. You didn't even really recognize yourself as different. You were just like soul power.
Yep. And my mom told me when I went into the school, she said, Tracy, you make sure everyone is included. Nobody left behind. And so, of course, she meant me, right? But she didn't mean everybody, but she did. That's what she said.
Yes, yes.
Nobody left behind.
So you were taking care of everyone.
I was taking care of everyone. No one was left behind. But how come the only kid with no hands was the only kid required to be able to tie her shoelaces to be there? And it made sense, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so that's in life too. When you're a woman in a man's business, or when you're a person with a disability in an able-bodied world, or when you're really tall and you want to be a ballerina, or you're really small and you want to be a basketball player, like everybody, we're all given these supposed tos and these standard operating procedures for fundraising or grants or getting a sponsor or a boss to hire us with a promotion or up our salary. There's things that make sense to us. That make sense. No just means they don't know. K-N-O-W. And you got to speak to their listening. Right? When I went sailing and I wanted to be trained by the gold Olympian, Magnus Lidgedal, I spent 5 days driving down in my car.
So you drive?
I drive. Can you believe?
Amazing. I'm envious.
Yes, I bet. See, how lucky am I?
I used to love to drive, so I can't wait to get in the car with you.
See, you and me, we'll be a good tag team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd be a brilliant tag team.
Do you drive fast?
I'm afraid I do.
Yay.
Yeah, right. We'll open the windows.
Perfect.
Yeah. So when I got there, after 5 days of waiting, I was super excited. And I jump out and I run over to Magnus and I'm like, Magnus, I'm Tracy from Toronto. I'm so excited to be a Paralympian. And then there was like silence.
Because he's not a Paralympian.
No, he's this gold, able-bodied, blonde Viking that's like almost 7 feet tall. And he only sails with pretty much able-bodied men, high performers, right? He got the gold for U.S. And he's like washing a boat at the time, plus his personality, like I'm just so extroverted.
Yes, yes.
And he's like a whole different kind of energy than I've got.
Yes.
And he was washing a boat. And so he's washing his boat, and he finally says, he feels the silence, and he's like, that's nice. And I don't know what I think I thought. I think I thought he was going to pick me up and twirl me around and say, I'll make you a Paralympian winner, you know?
Yes.
But that wasn't the reception I got. So what I did is I realized, like just like with the principal, my mom spoke to his listening.
Yes.
She didn't say she can do it. She said, if it doesn't work out, we just try another school.
Yes, yes.
Right? That's what he was worried about. So I wasn't speaking to Magnus's listening. So what I did is I picked up a sponge and I spoke to his listening, right? He's busy washing a boat.
So you helped him.
I helped him wash a boat. I ended up washing boats for 3 months before I got the time of day with Magnus.
Oh my God.
But I got there, right?
Yes,
no
yes.
just meant he didn't know.
Yes.
And I had to figure out a way to speak to his listening. I was going to stick around. I was going to be diligent. I was going to be tenacious.
Yes, yes.
And I needed to demonstrate that. And then he got me to World Cup regattas. But we also, it stopped being about Unstoppable Tracy.
Yes.
And it became an international Paralympic sports club. And I supported him getting out of this parking lot
Yes.
that was called Shake a Leg,
Yes.
which is kind of funny.
It is.
And we moved into an Olympic center of high performance quality.
Yes.
So that the international Paralympians could all be part of that.
Had they been previously part of sailing or no?
They weren't an official,
Right.
recognized international Paralympic sports club.
And now that exists because
And that existed because of the two of us together. Yeah.
My gosh.
And so one of the days when a regatta came up, a race came up,
Yes.
I'm like, I don't have a boat, and I'd really like to go, and I've been helping Magnus with a lot of paperwork and invoices and washing and fixing and
Yes.
a lot of his other bits and pieces of his programming. And there was this old boat that had like a creature living in it, and it was dusty, and it needed work.
A creature?
A creature. There was something. It wasn't a raccoon. I don't know what they got down there.
Yes, yes.
But there was some kind of nesting going on inside this little tiny old boat. And he said if I wanted, I could take that boat.
How big was the boat?
It's called a 2.4 meter.
Yes.
It's about 13 feet long.
Yes.
And it's a very high performance boat. There's, often there's a mainsail and a jib sail.
Yes.
But this boat has 24 lines on it. And it's a meter, the 12 meter is an America's Cup boat.
Yes.
And so they have a ton of crew on the America's Cup boat way back when.
Yes.
And this is like a shrink machine just took it and shrunk it. And they have all the same lines that the big boat has, but there's only room for one person in this boat.
And you managed that all
And
on
I'm
your own?
all on my own.
Holy.
And the able-bodied guys, they steer it with their feet
Yes.
so that they've got their hands to juggle all 24 lines, but I don't have my feet.
Right.
So I had to steer the boat and manage 24 lines, and I was in World Cup regattas with these guys. And you just have to figure it out.
Holy miracle.
Yeah. I think there was 114 races
Yes.
when I was in the bottom quarter
Yes.
of the fleet with all these able-bodied folk before I started to climb up a little bit. And but you just believe you can do it. Even Walt Disney went bankrupt 9 times, right? It's just you do it one more time than the guy that failed, and you're the one that succeeds. And that's what it was with shoelaces and sailing and skiing and scuba diving.
Yeah, tell us about skiing, because there's so much momentum coming down. There's
Yeah.
trees. How did you manage that?
Oh my gosh, we had no idea how I was going to do it because most people, when they're paralyzed from the waist down,
Yes.
they sit ski, or
Okay.
if they're missing their legs, they sit ski. But of course, I don't have my hands. And when you sit ski, you use outriggers. They're like crutches with little skis on the end.
Ah, yes.
And so the outriggers weren't working for me without my arms. And we tried to duct tape it to my left stump and all sorts of things, but I just didn't have the control.
Yes.
So what we did was we took my legs off, and we put my thighs in men's ski boots backwards.
Wait a minute. Men's ski boots.
Backwards, because I have no toes.
Right.
And ski boots are canted or angled a little bit.
Yes, yes.
And so when you're skiing, you're in a bit of a duck squat position.
Yes.
And so by having the backwards boots,
Yes.
it allowed me to be in that duck squat position.
Okay.
And by not having any feet, we didn't know how we would attach my stumps to the skis.
Yes.
But with the ski boots, they just snapped into the bindings. So that's why we use ski boots.
Yes.
And that's why we used backwards.
Yes.
And we used snow blades because they're double tipped, so it
Yes.
didn't matter which way it was facing.
Oh, there. I was looking for that understanding.
That last bit.
Yes.
So that's how it started.
My.
And then we get out there.
Yes. Did you have a hill the first time, or did you do it sort of flat to just find your footing? So to
Well,
speak?
the intention was to find my footing.
Yeah.
And I didn't find my footing. Surprise, surprise, no feet.
Yes.
So because I didn't have knees, when you're on the chairlift, your skis are usually parallel underneath you
Yes,
on the
yes,
chair.
yes.
But because I didn't have knees, my skis sat perpendicular to me on the chairlift. So when we went to get to the dismount of the ski lift, the backs of the tips kind of hit the ski bound
Yes.
and slingshotted me off of the chairlift.
Almost in a somersault?
Almost. So I momentously am going straight forward. I went right past the green run, the beginner's hill. I went right past the blue run, the medium difficulty. And I ended at the top of this double black diamond. It was called OMG. It's in Corner Brook, Newfoundland.
Perfect.
It was called Oh My Goodness.
Yes.
And you know, all of us, everybody, all the listeners, we all find those oh my goodness moments, right?
Yes,
And you're like,
yes.
holy cow.
I guess people saw this happening, but
Yeah.
would it have been a huge round of applause, or people just like going, oh,
They were all shouting. Everybody was shouting.
Perfect.
They were all shouting, stop!
No.
Stop!
they weren't, oh.
I don't know how to stop. They were shouting, turn! I don't know how to turn, right? It was my first time.
Right.
So I get to the top of this hill. The only way down is down.
Yes.
I was in the trees 12 times. 12 times! But it's soft snow. I'm low to the ground.
Yes.
It was fine. You know, with the sailing and falling out of the boat, you have to just exceed uncertainty.
Yes.
You just got to believe you're capable. You know,
Yes.
feeling uncertain is no excuse for inaction when I was falling out of the boat.
And when you were falling out of the boat, you had your prosthesis?
No legs on.
Oh, okay, good.
That's
So
why
you didn't
I
have the
was
extra
top
weight.
heavy. Yep.
Oh, my.
So I just kept falling backwards out of the boat when it would heal. But what do you do when you fall out of a
How did you
boat?
solve that?
Well, it took some practice. Like that first year, I didn't even get my white sail level 1 because I spent more time swimming with the fish than I did in the boat, right?
And you can,
I can swim. Also, it seems hard to imagine.
yes.
But if I can do it,
Anybody can do it.
exactly, no excuses.
My goodness.
You know, the worst thing in the world is having a good excuse. You know, because when you got a good excuse, I'm not going to figure out how to ski on a couch at home, right?
Correct.
I had to just go for it. I couldn't figure out how to balance in the boat in my head on a computer, right?
And
I
no
had
one
to
could
just
show you
get
how
in the
to do it
boat.
because it never been done before.
Exactly. You just got to go for it. And so when you've got a good excuse, you stay on that couch, and you have every right to.
Yes.
But if you have no excuses, you have no limits. And I have no limbs.
Yes.
So I have no limits. I spell limits with a B.
That's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I've never heard the expression, there's nothing worse in the world than an excuse or a good excuse.
Yeah.
Is that something you made up?
It sort of came to me
Yes.
by accident in talking, like with you.
Yes. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
May I quote you?
Please. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because it allows us to have our obstacles and drown our sorrows and for people to say, I get it, I can't imagine. Right? And so then and they can be left feeling
Yeah.
empathy.
And then beyond, I can't imagine. And then, okay, now let's really imagine succeeding somehow. We
Yes.
don't know how. And you actually just have the drive and
Yes.
and the vision and the commitment.
You embrace uncertainty even when you don't know how. You embrace possible even when you don't know how, right? You don't avoid failure. Just because I wiped out 12 times,
Yes.
what I said to my ski instructor afterwards was, can we do it one more time? You know?
How did the instructors respond? And like, you know, as you say, you embraced a dozen trees or 12 trees.
And he's the one that had to haul me out of the bushes, right?
Right. And I guess you maybe got a couple of scratches here and there, or
You
know.
got helmet on. I had nice full layered. It's the best sport to wipe out in because you're in a big ski coat and ski pants and helmet and gloves.
And you're almost like almost like a child then. Because,
Yeah,
you
just
don't
a
have
little
as many
bomber.
areas to go wrong. You just have your core.
Yep.
But in your core, does it mean that you've become quite strong in your core?
My core muscles are very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can horseback ride and I do it with my legs off.
Yes.
And I just have my upper thighs, right? I don't have knees. It's
Yes.
just my stumps.
Yes.
They don't end at my hips. There is a bit of stump, but
Yes.
my core muscles, they couldn't believe with the horseback riding when I started. But I think
Yes.
that's because of sailing, right? I really had to learn how to balance in the boat
My.
with my core. And it did me a favor because it gave me strong core muscles. A lot of my friends that have artificial legs or have above knee amputation, they've grown up and they've ended up not keeping their walking legs. You know? And so I think I'm really lucky that I had sailing to have strong core muscle
Yes.
so that I could keep my walking legs. I mean, it just gives me so much independence. But it's 700% of the energy for my walking than it is for your walking. And so, when you get the flu and you're laid out for like a week in bed or 2
Yes.
weeks because you've had a surgery or something,
Yes.
like every week you lose 10% of your muscle mass.
Yes.
But that's a really big deal for me with my artificial legs because of how much energy. So a cold is something. But when you get a cold and I don't wear my legs for a couple of weeks, it's like huge comeback to get the strength back, to get back to walking again.
My.
And so you got to stay fit. And so thanks to the love of sailing, I just kept climbing back in that boat. I love swimming.
Yes.
And swimming instructors, they want to tell you to like kick your feet or use
Yes.
both arms. But because I have one long arm,
Yes.
what works better for me is I do my strokes with one long arm.
Yes.
And then on the right side.
Yes.
And is to just kick my left stump.
Okay, yes.
'Cause if
so then that gives you one unit.
One unit, one long right arm
Yes.
and one short left leg, and then I swim straight. But if I swim with both arms or both legs, I swim in circles.
And then you keep one in or side or at the
I
front.
tend to use both arms, but I
Yes.
got a lot of power with my long right arm.
And you balance your right arm with your left thigh.
stump, yep, my left thigh. And I don't really do as much kicking with my right leg.
And do you get to be fit with flippers or anything, or so you get a bit more speed? Does that help, or have you tried?
We never did that up till after 40.
Oh.
But after 40 was scuba diving, when I became more and more independent.
Scuba diving?
Yeah, I'm an advanced scuba diver.
Oh man!
Yes. Yep. We'll get you scuba diving if you like.
I would love. I've never gone, so it'll be an amazing. I
Oh,
can't
wow.
Wait.
Are you comfortable underwater?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Well, I know just the man.
All right.
Yep. I'll get you hooked up. If I can scuba dive, you can scuba dive.
And I'm entering into this new world of blind adventures and blind faith.
Yeah.
I got blindsided 6 years ago.
Oh, my gosh.
And I thought, I'll be better in a month or two, an operation.
Yeah.
A dozen of them later, and like, I guess and I never wanted to be disabled or didn't see myself as that.
No.
Because I still see myself as abled.
Yeah.
And, and fully abled.
Yeah.
But now I'm having to make adjustments and realize, okay, this is just different now.
Yes. Yep. Well, and you're clearly a very prestigious, intelligent, handsome, well put together gentleman. Yes. And so I can imagine like coming to this world that is on the different end of all of the magnificent, magical possibilities you'd had at your fingertips before
Yes.
you lost your sight.
Yes.
And so I too can't begin to imagine.
Yeah.
But I do know that this is I don't want to be any different myself.
Yeah.
I'm exactly who I need to be.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have climbed the Himalayas or scuba dived, or I wouldn't have, and because I became, through virtue of just living, the no means no, K-N-O-W girl,
Yes.
I was able to bust Uber into Canada.
Oh, how?
And-
What happened there?
Well, so they're saying no, 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 and taxi drivers are fighting hard for it, and
Yes.
you can understand that they don't want to lose their bread and butter, and so of course they're passionate about it.
Yes.
But with Uber came accessibility. Like with Uber came affordable on-demand rides. Look at you, you took an Uber here today.
Yes.
And if you needed to last-minute order Wheel-Trans, you wouldn't be able to get it.
Impossible.
So there was no on-demand flexibility, but you don't need a big accessible bus.
No.
You just need on-demand transportation that's
Yes.
affordable.
Yes.
And on the other side of things, they also brought wheelchair accessible vehicles
Yes.
with Uber, and they also bring Uber Assist,
Yes.
where folks
I use Uber Assist all
You
the
use
time.
Uber
and
Assist all the time.
It helps
It comes door to
amazingly.
door, right?
Yes, and they're aware that, something is different. And, they still don't know.
No.
And as a matter of fact, with Uber, I'm looking forward to connecting with some of the leadership there.
Great.
So that they develop their programs for the visually impaired, because it is difficult.
Yeah.
I have limited sight. And
Yep.
I struggle to, and so like the voice commands and other things, I don't think they've developed yet, but I'm sure that they'll be doing that, given that they're doing the great job that they are so far.
Yes, and that's what I petitioned at City Hall. Without Uber, you don't gain that transportation gap
Yes,
solved.
yes,
Right? They've been trying with the taxis. They'd even added 100 taxis, but accessible taxis, and people didn't pick up those licenses.
no,
And so without Uber, you lost the gap that was happening in transportation to fair and equitable transportation
Yes.
for people who are pregnant, for people with broken legs, for senior citizens that
Yes.
are going through surgery,
Yes.
or just a little, they don't even, most people that have vision loss don't consider themselves disabled. Most people with hearing loss don't consider themselves a disability.
No.
Most men that have had a stroke don't consider themselves having a disability. So we know Stats Canada says approximately 15% of people have had a disability
Yes.
that self-identify.
yes.
But that doesn't even include people who are blind, people who are deaf, and people who have had a stroke
Yes.
who don't self-identify, you know?
Yes,
Like, it's only those that self-identify that are in that statistic.
yes.
And all of these people are having a gap in transportation. And so that's when City Hall said, okay. They were able to finally have an argument that was powerful enough. So
Yes.
that's my first step with Uber, getting involved with Uber.
Yes, and then, so you've been an activist in this, and they engaged you professionally, I guess,
They
to
did.
work with? How
I-
exciting.
I did a lot of their classroom training and some of their training for all of their drivers, but also
Yes.
for their wheelchair accessible vehicle drivers.
Yes.
And now they've recently handed that off to another company. So that's not me now, this in 2018.
Yes.
But I am their online Uber training. And you can, if you look up Unstoppable Tracy and
Yes.
Uber,
Yes.
you'll find my videos online.
Okay, it's unstoppabletracy.com.
That's correct. I have a YouTube channel and a LinkedIn and a Facebook. They're all Unstoppable Tracy.
Yes, yes.
All of them. But I like to joke because I don't have my legs and I don't have my hands, so I have no extra parts. And so I like to joke with my name. I
Yes.
don't have an E either. I'm just Tracy, no
Yes.
extra parts.
Perfect, perfect.
No.
On the parts, are you able to adjust your height by choosing different size of prosthetics so you can be taller or
I sure am. If I was to date someone as tall and handsome as you, I'd have nice, long, tall legs. But if they're shorter, I can be shorter. It's perfect.
So you've turned everything into an advantage.
Oh, yeah. Yes. There's
That's amazing.
definitely. And you know what?
Yes.
The brutal reality is
Uh-huh.
everything is empty and meaningless.
Yes.
And so the bonus to that
Yes.
is that life is what you make it mean.
Right.
I could make it mean it's awful that I got to wear artificial legs. Or I could make it mean, oh, I can be any height I want.
When I
Right?
first met you, I had no idea, and we hugged.
Yeah.
And I think you even had slightly high heels that first day,
At
or is
that
that
first-
something, or is that something that you're working towards? Because right now you're it's
My
almost-
shoes are flat. No,
Yeah.
so far I've always got flat shoes.
All right.
Yes, but I definitely want to become rich and famous enough that I could afford to have interchangeable feet.
Oh, okay.
And I'm getting there.
Okay. And do the ankles move?
My ankles don't move, but there are ankles that can move.
All right.
And there are robotic knees.
Yes.
I just noticed how my skirt I was flashing you a little bit of leg, my friend. Look
Didn't
at
see a
that.
thing.
Didn't see a thing. Well, what you were missing was thighs of steel.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I was in an audience. There were 3,000 people. I
Yes.
just introduced John Travolta, would you believe? Isn't that incredible? I've been on
Yes.
stage with Jane Fonda and Mark Wahlberg and all these
Yes.
incredible people as
Yes.
a keynote speaker.
Yes.
But because of being the speaker at this conference, I got to sit in some special front row
Yes.
seating.
Yes.
And one of the people being interviewed was Charlie Sheen, would you believe?
Oh my gosh.
And he caught my legs, my thighs of steel, my calves of steel, caught his eye from the stage because I was in the front row on
Yes.
the side.
Yes.
And he just sort of stopped the show. And the interviewer's like, "Hello, Charlie, I'm up here." And he's like, "I know you're there, but look, she's out there," right? And he just like totally called attention to me in the audience.
Yes.
And it was so funny.
Uh-huh.
And he was saying, the interviewer was like, "Well, we're up here right now. You got to stop chasing those women, Charlie." And then he's like, "Yeah, but she's got thighs of steel." Like that's where I got that expression from. Was actually Charlie Sheen.
Yes.
And then he gets all 2,500 people in the audience.
Yeah.
He's like, "Say it with me," and he got everybody in the audience chanting, "Thighs of steel." It was terrible, inappropriate. But his heart was huge, and he was really fully trying to honor me and
Yes.
celebrate me.
Yes.
And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I had so much story and so much nerves about, all the things that I've done, and why would people want to interview me, and what are they going to want to hear I have to say?" And I was full of fear coming out on this stage today, and that's what he said on the stage. And he's like, "And here you are, all dressed up to the nines, sitting
Yes.
front row." And he said, "I had nothing to be. I had no excuses." And that was Charlie Sheen. And I mean, he was just a very thoughtful man, even though he was inappropriate with the thighs of steel.
Yes, yes.
His heart was so big and magical.
Sweetness.
And isn't that great? Now, I really wished he had everybody chanting "Unstoppable Tracy." That would have been way better, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But and I met a lot of people because he did that. Lots of people found me afterwards and took pictures with me, and things skyrocketed. I got cover of Thrive, and I was in Oprah magazine, and I've been all around the world. I used to say 26 countries, but I just got back from 11 countries in Europe.
Oh, tell us about that.
Can you imagine? So I was hired to speak at the Edinburgh International Festival.
Yes.
And
Which is
it's a huge fringe festival,
Yes.
marketing festival. There's musicians and poets and authors. There's people
Blarney
that are
galore.
Blarney galore, yes. And there's all sorts of people that are really good at the divine as well. There's
Yes.
people that are good in yoga and getting in touch with their senses. It was very big international festival in Edinburgh.
yes.
And so I was there as a keynote speaker, as a best-selling author.
Yes. Yes. So about
Which was
animal-
exciting.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's why they invited me. And Wales
Yes.
saw in the marketing
Yes.
that I was coming to Scotland.
Yes.
And they said, "Will you come to Wales?" And then when I was in Wales with the
Yes.
Intelligent Millionaires Network, it's a
Yes.
network. So then London said, "Will you come to our Intelligent Millionaires Network?" And then when I was in London, this Grow Together exponentially
Yes.
organization,
Yes.
they said, "Will you come to our event?" And it just snowballed to Hungary and Zurich, Switzerland, and Paris, and all over 11 countries, 33 cities that I ended up going. And it all started with this one gig. And it happened very quickly. That all happened. 33 cities happened in less than 3 months because people saw I was going to Edinburgh. And even my last, so I was in Edinburgh on a stage, and my last gig
Yes.
was in Amsterdam.
Yes.
My speakers bureau, Assembly Speaker, they're my European speakers bureau.
Yes.
They got me a gig with ING, with the online banking.
Oh, phenomenal.
So I got to be with an ING opportunity speaking to their business executives
So
and problem
what would
solvers.
you say to, let's say, a group like that?
Very similar stories.
Yes.
I say exceed uncertainty, no excuse for inaction. You go for it, and I share my falling out of a boat story. If I can do it, you can do it. And I talk about, even if you don't know how,
Yes.
like for example, ING wants to solve the problems, and they want to make sure that they're safe, like that they're not laundering money,
Yes.
or, all these really great, fabulous things that they are accountable for being responsible for
Yes.
to protect the world's money.
Yes.
And they really care, so they have this team of problem solvers.
Yes.
But sometimes you don't know how you're going to do it.
Yes.
And so I talk about we don't know how, but I didn't
And that's
learn to
okay.
ski
It's
on the
absolutely
couch.
great, because
You
it's an
gotta-
opportunity.
Yes. And you don't know how you're going to ski until I get out to that hill, and
Yes.
I'm sitting on the hill, and my ski instructor has size 11 boots. And his boots were off his feet. And the opening of the ankle part looked like my thigh, right? It looked like my stump sockets.
Huh.
And I'm like, look, why can't we put my legs in there? Right? And and we weren't going to figure that out on a couch at home. So sometimes
No.
you just got to
Or
go
drawing
for
board,
it.
you just, yeah.
Jump in, both feet. And so that's what I share, is even if you don't know the how, you
Yes.
embrace the possibility.
Yes.
And then I talk about earning independence.
Oh, yes.
And
Tell us about that.
that's my climbing story, really.
Mhm.
Because when you're rappelling or when you're climbing,
Yes.
you're on the side of that cliff.
Yes.
And you feel like you are all alone out there. You don't feel like anybody's with you. There's you in the rock face.
Yes.
But
Are you
in
on a line with others, but you're still alone in that middle space where you are?
And bingo, you
Yeah.
got it. I'm
Yes.
on a line with others. So in your heart, in the moment when you're, way up in the air, petrified,
And
you
trying to find
feel
your next-
alone.
Yes.
But you're on a line with others, just like you said. And I remember someone shouting, "Tracy!" from the cliff above, out of
Yes.
sight.
Yes.
And then I had this realization, I'm not alone, right? I've got my safety line. I've got
Yes.
my belay line.
Yes.
And so that's who you are with this incredible show, right? You are that safety line. You're that line for the world,
Yes.
right? You are our safety line so that I can feel independent. I
Yes.
can feel divine times.
Yes.
You
And you're
set me up
living
for
it.
success by sharing our stories.
Yes. And really, divinity is us acknowledging that each one of us is unique, individual. We're special in our own right according to what we give
Yeah.
and what we can give to our community, our family, our friends, and, to life.
That's so magical. See that profoundness, that life, that individual life isn't
Yes.
about earning independence alone.
Yes.
It's, as you say, it's the community
Yes.
and who you surround yourself with and the friends,
Yes.
and realizing that we all have a divine gift to
Yes.
give
Yes. To
in our
discover.
community, to
Yes.
discover together.
Yeah, develop and, and actually divine.
And divine.
And as we do that, regardless, in my case, I faced incredibly dark moments.
Yeah.
And dark, sight and vision. Sometimes, and it's like, okay, I have to remember which shirt is which, and I number them, in my
good.
head, and so I can figure out if I'm wearing white or blue or different things like that.
Oh my gosh. And you are one of the most attractive dressers I know. You dress better than people that can actually see what they're putting on. So there's a skill to it for sure.
Yeah, and it becomes innate, but the innate is, our will to have well-being regardless of our circumstances,
Yeah.
to actually subsume and transcend them to the even better than we know we are, and
Yeah.
just finding it.
Yeah.
And then there's like, aha,
Uh-huh.
and that's divine times.
Yes.
And that's for everyone.
Yes.
It's not just us. It's each of us.
Each of us.
In all of this, you spoke of education, so
Yeah.
you've got a master's degree
Yeah, I do. In business.
in business,
But
yes?
also a teaching degree. That's why the education and
Oh, right.
traveling to all those Uganda, Mexico, Nepal, and 26 countries and growing now. I'm well over 30. I should do a little count and see how many countries I've been to now.
What did you do your thesis on?
My thesis, well, my recreation thesis
Yes.
was actually on the valuable contributions of leisure.
Yes.
And so, what is it that feels, if I didn't know how to swim, I wouldn't have been able to go sailing.
But
I wouldn't
it's
have been able to
powerful
fall out
leisure
of the
and
boat.
profound leisure, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
and being in that zone where you're not thinking about the laundry anymore.
Right.
Right? You're not thinking about the test if you're a student, or you're
Yes.
not thinking about.
Something that lights us up.
Yeah, it just lights us up, and you are fully drawn into this zone cone of absolute presence when you're in the middle of, for me, sailing or skiing or scuba
Yes.
diving or horseback riding, right?
Yes,
Like when I'm
yes.
in the middle of those great moments,
Yes.
I'm not thinking about even handsome Hilton. I am just thinking about climbing that cliff.
Happy days and moments. Is
Yeah.
skating like ice skating, is that ever a possibility?
I did it once with two big, handsome hockey players, right? So I couldn't skate, but it sure gave me a bonus to get in the arms of these two fabulous men.
Oh my God. I've been threatening to put my ice skates back on.
Oh.
And I was a junior Ontario figure skating champion way back when.
Wow,
So
wow.
I'm not certain where my feet will be, but if I do that this winter,
Yes.
and find another call week, we'll see what we can do to do that. Because I heard you say that in the regatta world,
Yeah.
you were waiting for the one fellow to pick you up and spin you around and just like
Yeah.
if that hasn't happened for you yet, I'd like to help make that happen.
In skating.
In skating.
Oh, wow. Well, that's it. Well, you already hugged me and practically picked me up off my feet. So we've got
Exactly.
one part of it down.
So we're
We just have to
we're
go
in practice, and we'll
skating.
see, and we'll give that a shot.
Well,
We'll see what
thank
we
you,
can do.
Hilton. I love that.
That'll be so.
See how lucky I am? See, you never would have invited that for me if I
and
wasn't
and
exactly
it's sort of like
this.
it's actually encouraging me
Yes.
to do this, because there's
Skating
something then
together.
that, something that maybe has never been done or not usually done.
Yep.
And we get to transcend.
Yeah.
And experience something unique, and it's a gift to not just to us.
No.
But if there's others around,
Yes.
like, if we can do it, anybody can do it.
Yes. And maybe that's starting your business.
Yes.
Maybe it's recreation.
Yes.
Or maybe it's making a difference for others. Or maybe it's getting that grumpy neighbor to invest in the fence with you, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
who knows? Or maybe it's getting your teenagers to talk to you vulnerably.
Yes.
Right? Like, we all have different missions to achieve.
Yes.
And they don't all have to be climbing the Himalayas without legs.
No,
Right?
no.
They sometimes it's tough to talk to our teenagers.
Yes. Yeah. In your book, Unstoppable Tracy.
Unstoppable you.
Unstoppable you. So you've transcended yourself.
Yes.
And you're being a messenger. What's your message here? And what are some of the highlights of Unstoppable You?
Well, and there's 3 levels of title.
Yes.
So Unstoppable You is the first heading.
Yes.
And then the Limitless Secret, spelt with a B because I'm limitless.
Yes.
It's not a very good joke when I have to spell it.
Yes.
and then the third header is Exceed Uncertainty, Embrace Possibility,
Yes.
and Earn Independence. And so it's this journey, but instead of just, chapter 2 is sharing my kindergarten story of being
Yes.
told no
Yes.
and becoming the shoelace leader.
Yes.
At the end of that chapter, I have a question or two that says, so what's working for you? What are your strengths? What's not working for you? And then the last one is, what do you want to do to continue forward?
Yes.
Right? And so there's some self-coaching question. And when I talk about exceeding uncertainty and falling out of the boat
Yes.
and then growing up to be a World Cup sailor,
Yes.
and some of the more juicy details of some
Yes.
of that, then there's some new questions there.
Yes.
And it talks about, whenever we're learning, there's phases of learning. Like, for example, there's the enthusiastic beginner, like a teenager. I can drive,
Yes,
right? They
yes,
all
yes.
want to drive.
Yes.
But then when they get to parallel parking or highway driving, there's this disillusionment, right?
Yes.
It's a lot harder than they thought. So then they actually master the highway and parking.
Yes.
But now they're capable and cautious. Now they can do it, but they're so cautious because they don't know what they didn't know.
Yeah. And becoming a bit more conscious.
and a lot more conscious.
A lot more conscious, yes.
And so they've got to go through this enthusiastic beginner, disillusioned learner to capable but cautious before you get to the self-reliant high achiever.
Yeah, the confident high achiever.
Confident high achiever.
Yes.
But you know what? That's the same as my conversation with you, a little bit like enthusiastic. Oh, I can't wait to talk to Hilton. And then we started and the cameras were rolling and I was a little disillusioned. Oh boy, I don't know how this is going to go.
Exactly, yes.
And then we got more and more capable till now you and I are kind of in this rhythm together.
Yeah, we're having a great time. And,
Yeah.
and, you know, in this great time, it is looking for the greatness,
Yeah.
you know, and offering whatever greatness we can find within ourselves, holding a space for greatness to show up in the other,
Yes.
and inviting each and everyone to find their
greatness.
their greatest little divinity or next divine step.
Yes. And that's not going to come potentially without disillusionment.
Yeah, and when you speak of earning, what was it?
Speaking to his listening for
Yes.
Magnus and
Yes.
my principal.
Yes.
Speaking to their listening.
Yeah, and you
Right.
spoke of earning. There was
Earning independence.
earning independence. So that's
is
not
not
something that
alone.
and in earning independence, one has to work at it. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not just independence doesn't come because we're born sort of dependent.
Yeah.
And so you had this will to earn independence at every level, and you keep
Yes.
on having new levels.
And
So-
my independence is my strength, but independence is also my weakness. You
how
know?
so?
Well, because I can be really independent, and that's magical.
Yes.
But I can be really independent, and sometimes I need to ask for help. I can be
Interdependence.
over
Yes.
independent,
Yes.
right?
So the next step is interdependence.
Yes,
Where
and
we're-
that's where the strength came from.
Yes, understood.
Right? That's how I climbed the Himalayas. That's how I sailed.
Interdependence,
That's
yes.
how I skied.
And you
It
were a
wasn't
giver, and you
alone.
contributed, and you contributed and contributed, even though you were clear that you had a desire, and you wanted to be helped.
Yeah.
First, you offered to help,
Yes.
and that makes all the difference.
Yes. What can you offer? We all have a divine gift we can offer.
Yeah.
And you don't do it because you want help. You do
No.
it because authentically,
Yeah.
Magnus needed his boat washed.
Right.
My friends needed their shoes tied.
Right.
Right? Like what? Not because I wanted to stay.
Yeah, not to get something. It's just
Yeah.
okay. They need their shoes
Oh,
tied.
they
I can
need
do
it.
it. Let me
Make
do my
a
part.
difference. And then all the times I fall down in the schoolyard,
Yes.
they're there to pick me up. Right? 2, 3 friends, whether they're 5 or 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Right? When you get more than one, anybody could
Right.
pick up somebody that's fallen down.
Right. When people see someone in distress, you know, people do reach out. There is a goodness
Yeah.
in available to all of humanity
Yes.
if we dig down and reach out and extend a hand.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, in your book, my God, your arms are up. I see just in unstoppable you.
Unstoppable you.
And it's I can even see a little bit of the you there. And
Woo.
you've got I believe you have pictures in here. So this is you know, this is not
This
a
is-
boring book. This
That's
is
climbing the
actually-
Himalayas on a plateau part with Susma, a Nepalese student.
Oh yes, marvelous. And let's see, I'm gonna flip through a few of this.
I'm speaking to a mental wellness conference there,
Yes, yes.
which I never would have dreamed of.
Yes.
I mean, what do I?
And here there's 4 shots.
Yes, I'm flying an airplane, I'm riding a horse, I'm scuba diving, and I'm sailing that high performance 2.4 in Miami.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. This is. Oh wait, and more.
More, I'm riding a bicycle and a motorcycle and sailing, and I can't see the top corner.
Oh okay.
Canoeing.
Canoeing. Whoa.
Look at
you you do it all. Wait. This is too exciting. And you see, I need your help here in order for me to see this, and this is just marvelous. Thank
Being
you.
able to describe it together.
Yes. So this one.
So I love to paint and draw.
Oh.
And I started at a very young age. So I think that's a grade 5 picture of me drawing, or maybe kindergarten.
Yes.
And so I'm using my stump and my finger together to
Yes.
hold the pencil. And went on to.
My God, there's real detail. It's beautiful. And you're only 5.
I
5 or
think so.
6? Yeah,
5 or 6 years
amazing.
old, looking at the picture of the house.
Yes. And the title of this one? This
Who
chapter?
Needs a Hand?
Ha! Yes. Very, very good. And here we have some.
Is my like that's
Your
with my
family
legs
photo.
up as a baby,
Yes.
and me and my young sister, and me and brownies.
Yes. So were you a Girl Guide or?
I was a Girl Guide and a Pathfinder. Yep.
And here?
Here, there's a bunch of us in kindergarten, because
Yes.
that particular chapter is about how I was denied kindergarten.
Okay.
And there's me and my sister on a tandem bike, and I'm tying my niece's shoelaces where your thumb is.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And
All right.
I have a newfound respect that my parents didn't tie my shoelaces. Because I wanted to tie my niece's shoelaces for her.
Yes.
But if I did it for her, then she wouldn't learn to tie her own shoelaces. And she had 10 fingers. So now I understand the willpower it must have taken my mom and dad to leave me to make my bed, to brush my teeth, to tie my shoelaces.
To find your way.
To find my way. So much so that I was the only one in kindergarten who could tie her shoelaces,
Holy.
right? So what's that about? That picture is in Melbourne, Australia,
Yes.
in a Scud.
You
big
must
fancy boat.
love traveling.
I do love traveling.
Well, you're making the best of it.
Aw.
And this one here?
Is when I was learning to sail. I'm swimming in Jamaica. My
Yes.
high school prom.
My gosh.
You're so fun taking me through this journey.
High school prom and
Yeah.
here?
So this chapter was about my journey to become a Paralympic sailor. So
Yes.
these are several different sailing pictures. I'm rigging a boat. I'm teaching someone to sail.
Yes.
My inspiration, Kathy Smart, was the one that believed in me right from 11 years old. There's a picture of her with me there.
Yes. My gosh.
And so, see, the end of every chapter,
Yes.
I have new questions that I ask you that not about Unstoppable Tracy, but what about my reading my story? Let's think of your story.
How it applies to Unstoppable You. And
You.
so this book is not for just for people with special needs
No.
or disabilities. This is for everybody.
It's actually, it was a #1 bestseller in business on Amazon.
My goodness.
I'm shooting a bow and arrow that looks like a gun in that picture.
Oh, yes.
And so that's my no excuses picture.
Well, don't want to mess with you.
Don't mess with me, no excuses. That's
Yes.
the tall ship I captained, the Luke Gardinia.
That's huge, isn't it?
It's massive. It's 110 feet long.
No.
And I was the captain. My captain,
How many crew?
how many? Well, there was about 12 of us
Yes.
that were in a group for that particular Luke Gardinia. And then there was other tall ships in the Eastern Atlantic, and I
Yes.
had 24. But the trick with those 12 and 24 were they aren't people that necessarily know how to sail a tall ship.
Yes.
The one in the Eastern Atlantic, the captain's wife went into labor, and I was the only one that really knew how to sail, but not a tall ship, and he left me in charge.
Oh, my.
And that's how I ended up being a captain on a tall ship.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so
19 years
inspiring.
old and a captain of a tall ship.
Yes, and here?
And so here are some of those pictures. I'm out on a bowsprit of the tall ship, and
Yes.
I'm sitting at the helm, and I'm teaching some of the people how to whip lines and finish off lines.
I can't imagine that some of the clubs, haven't invited you in as an honorary member.
See, well, so National Yacht Club does have me as an honorary member.
Excellent. Good
Yes.
for National Yacht Club. I've
which
been
is-
there before.
Oh, they're very, very lucky.
Yeah, they're a wonderful group there.
Thank you.
And some of the other groups that are not the National Yacht Club, I think, listen up. There's an opportunity for you here to have
Unstoppable Tracy.
Absolutely.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
And here?
Here, that chapter is called "She's Coming Round the Bend,"
Uh-huh.
and that's Nepal, my Nepal journey of
Oh, yes.
what it was when I was climbing, and people had never really seen folks with disabilities before because so many of them just die off.
Yes.
They don't have the technology and the legislation, and they don't have enough food for everybody.
Right, so they die off in some ways unthinkable, I can
Yeah.
perhaps imagine.
Yes.
And prefer
And so when
not
they
to.
saw me, many people followed me. This is like
It was a
pictures
real
of the
marvel.
crowds following me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here?
And here, so that's there's a bunch of Nepalese students watching me blow up a balloon,
Yes, yes.
and there's a whole bunch of Nepalese folk that climbed the Annapurna region with
Oh,
me.
yes.
And they're
There's a restaurant in Toronto called Annapurna. Have you been there?
No,
We'll have to go.
we would
It's
love.
a vegetarian
it would be amazing.
restaurant just on
that-
Bathurst.
So that's a Nepalese. That was a Buddhist temple that I was near. And one of those pictures is my legs on the pile of a bunch of. I left my legs in Kathmandu. I didn't even bring them with me when I climbed the Himalayas.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, can you believe?
That's great. So with your your thighs, on their own, are you able to walk in balance, or is it a different approach for you?
It's like when you're walking on your knees.
All right.
So I can walk on my knees, and your knees are a little tough,
Yes.
but it's a little bit painful, right? So when I did the Annapurna region, I had some leather covers for my stumps.
Oh, okay, that's smart.
Yeah.
And here?
So there's some photographs of me skiing, and there's a picture of me. On my hand, I wear an opposition device. So
What does that mean?
So with just my finger, I can't hold anything.
Okay.
But when I wear this opposition device,
Oh, okay, so then
now
it's
I
like
can pitch
clippers
things.
and-
Yep,
yes,
If
okay.
you'd like to hold it,
You
you're
can
welcome
hold,
to.
yes, yes.
So this is.
Oh, yes.
I wear that on my finger, but
Yes.
when I wear it, now
Yes.
I can
Oh,
put
okay,
it
now
on
you've got-
properly.
you've got-
yeah,
you've
now
got
I've got a
leverage.
grip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's how I hold my pen or pencil, and it's how I drive. So there's a picture of me holding my steering wheel.
Ah, man.
I'm kayaking in that
Yes.
picture,
And,
and bobsledding.
whoa.
And that picture is sitting around in a group as a team, together, team building,
Yes.
when we were in the Himalayas in Nepal.
My gosh, you are such an inspiration. And if we come back down here and here?
This is my magnificent friend Natasha,
Yes.
and I talk about hanging on by one finger is the name of the chapter, and that's when I was repelling and feeling all alone.
Yes.
And that earning independence is discovering the divine in others and rallying your lifelines. And so Natasha has been a lifelong lifeline for me.
Very good. And this is the 10th chapter. Is this the last?
That's the last chapter.
And what's the title?
Hanging on by one finger.
My gosh.
But there's, there are all these silly, funny titles. That's a
And-
picture of me rappelling and climbing.
Yes. And I want to go through this entirely. And let me just see. And back here we have...
So different sponsors were also part of the book. If they invited me to speak before I produced my
Yes.
book, before I published it, I said, well, for $5,000 you can have a page in my book and have me to speak.
Yes, so
and
who
then
are
you're
some of
with
your
me
sponsors
forever.
that are-
So that's Odin, the Ontario Disability Employment Network.
Yes.
And Uber and Reach.
Yes.
And
And this one is Uber?
this one's Uber.
Yes.
And there's Odin, and there's Variety Village.
Oh, yes.
And then these are some of the other books that Black Card. Black Card is my publisher. I didn't self-publish.
Yes.
I did Black Card Books, and Black
yes.
Card is my publisher. So those are like 8
Yeah.
other books from Black
Jerry
Card
Roberts.
publishers by Jerry Roberts.
Very good. Very good. This
And
is
even that
yes.
is a big feat, right? Jerry
Yes.
Roberts, you pay to get your
huge
book.
dollars, yes.
$40,000.
Yes.
And I didn't have it.
Yes.
But I believed I could do it. And so I put it all on my credit card. I
My
put 2
gosh.
credit cards, and I expanded my limit.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, I have to do whatever it takes to find
Yes.
4 sponsors for $10,000 or 8 sponsors for $5,000.
And you did it.
Or
and, you know,
4 sponsors or 10 sponsors for $4,000. Like I just kept doing it until
Yes.
I could pay off those credit cards.
That's amazing. And many people do this and sign up for it, and they don't earn the work to actually complete this. So some
Yep.
people lose money doing this, and you're
Yeah.
actually prospering, and it's just such an opportunity and such a gift.
And he sets you up for success.
Yes, he does. He's a magnificent trainer.
Yeah. So the only thing stopping you from being a millionaire
Yes.
is you. Right? It's no excuses millionaire.
Yeah.
And it's not, and sometimes millions can be in dollars, sometimes it can be in soul, sometimes
Yes.
it can be in friendship.
Yes.
So, we define million in our
Yeah.
own ways.
It's in richness and prosperity, richness
Yes.
and abundance of life,
Yes.
and appreciation and gratitude
Yes.
and excitement and
Yes.
grabbing it all.
Yes.
Yes. So on our final notes here, and I'm so sad we're going to be closing off. There are associations, throughout the world, but particularly in Canada, for people with disabilities and special needs. I happen to be the new Ontario leader for the Party for People with Special Needs,
Amazing.
and I'm just beginning that journey. And what are some of the things that you would recommend or suggest I actually look at embracing and some of the challenges, that can need to be taken on?
We have some of these initiatives where we say we want accessibility.
Yes.
And we employ like a bunch of building code authorized aficionados.
Yes.
But and so they might say that toilet paper is 600 millimeters off the ground and 300 millimeters in front of a toilet.
Yes.
And an able-bodied person that doesn't actually need that accessible intervention will approve it.
Yes.
But it's actually just the dispenser that meets the 600-300 rule.
Yes.
So if you do nothing about us without us, if you had me doing that tour with that person, I would be able to highlight, no, that toilet paper, where you actually grab the paper, is below the 600 millimeters and is in front of that 300 millimeters. And so they authorize these dispensers, but not the functionality of it. They don't really understand their very own codes.
No.
And so you really need to be nothing about us without us. And why not? There's so many people, unfortunately, because of construction accidents or work things that have happened, or skiing or sailing or drunk driving or motorcycle. But there are many people out there that know engineering, that know construction, and they just happen to now be blind or using a chair or with hearing loss.
Yes.
But they still have those engineering skills.
Yes.
So let's employ those folks.
Much more so.
Let's not pay a bunch of able-bodied people to try to second guess what we need.
Very wise.
Involve us.
Yes.
And transportation is out there, but there's still really big gaps.
Yeah, transportation, communications, connections, as you said, even with the toilet paper in a washroom, I know that, it's not always on the right side or left side. I'm having to feel walls.
In a washroom that's dirty.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh. And, trying to find doorways and it can be a wonderful challenge, but sometimes a frustrated one.
Yes.
And if we were more involved,
yes,
and asked, and if we were invited, or, and also, I guess it's now time for us to advocate and even be an activist.
Yes, like the Americans.
Yes.
And like the lesbian, bi, gay, trans, gay, queer community, like the people who were black at a time when it wasn't, and there were separate washrooms, a horrific time.
Yes.
And so we have a very small voice, and we haven't spoke up. And it's time that we also are aware of fair and equitable treatment. Sometimes people make fun of our beloved David Lepofsky because he's out there.
Yes.
But thank goodness for the David Lepofskys
Truly.
for standing up and talking about, having an accessible website doesn't mean some of the font is large, but that you still put PDF documents there that nobody can read.
Yes.
Right? You need the PDF document to also be readable by a screen reader.
Yes.
And you know what's really interesting?
What?
Is that everybody over 40 needs glasses for reading.
Yes.
And so larger font's just helpful.
Yes.
And painting a light switch white on a white wall.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
everybody's looking for the light switch. It's not about having vision loss. It's everybody.
Yes.
So why not have it required that light switches are 50% different color than the background wall?
Oh,
and
yes.
that will benefit everybody.
Truly.
It's not about vision loss.
Yes.
Or if
And
you...
it's about change because,
Yeah.
if we live long enough, and life is change, nothing is the same.
No.
If we live long enough, we are going to be encountering change, and we either embrace it or resist it. If we resist it, we suffer.
Yep.
If we start embracing it, we find new ways, and particularly for seniors,
Yes.
there's more and more changes sometimes in our mobility, in our mental functioning, in our five major senses.
Yep.
And
they're the predominant population now.
yes.
Right? Until 2017, people 14 and under
Yes.
were the largest population in Canada and Australia and US and
Yes.
every country.
Yes.
January 2017, people 55 and older became the largest chunk of the population. So if you don't do it because it's the right thing to do it because it's going to be survival for your business and your housing market and your grocery
home and
market
your family,
yeah,
all of it.
visitability,
Yes.
right? When people come to your home,
Yes.
there's somebody over 55 that's got 65% of a chance of having some kind of mobility impairment.
Yes.
65% of people over 65. So I take an educated guess that 55% of people over 55
Yes, yes.
have some kind of impact with their sight or their hearing or their mobility.
Yes.
And so you want a washroom on your main floor. So let's start demanding of the real estate market
Yes.
that every new house has a washroom on the same level of the entry level.
Okay.
And you know what's really great is, we need drainage. So they build like 2-3 steps at the front door.
Yes.
Well, if they just make the street a higher level and make the drainage at the back, well, now you get some extra footage for your basement apartment or your lower level
Yes.
that's more attractive.
Yes.
Because there's more light and windowing at the back.
Yes.
You get drainage and you get a no-step entry. I mean, so it's not that these solutions are secretive or expensive. They don't cost you more money.
No.
But they do need you to involve those solutions at the beginning.
Yes.
And what's great is you delight your customers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And we're actually not only delight our customers, but we're actually showing wisdom for who our customers will become in terms of their extended family to come to visit,
Yeah.
or who they will become in the decades to come themselves.
Yes.
I couldn't have imagined, years ago, that I'd be walking around with one of these white staffs.
I bet.
Like this. And this is my eyes on the ground that just give me access to knowing what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful. And then occasionally I'm going forward, and particularly construction sites in this street, and oh my God, I'm not on a straight path. They're moving things. There's potholes. It's an adventure.
Yeah. I bet.
And just as you've had yours,
Yes.
I'm having mine, and I'm so looking forward to collaborating with you.
Thank you.
In the world, in the regular world, and in the special needs world, so we can make this a better place for everyone. Because when we invest in people, everyone benefits.
Yes.
Tracy, again, for anyone viewing and everyone viewing, do look at unstoppabletracy.com, pick up the book, become a sponsor, do something wonderful, and I can't thank you enough for being so wonderful here.
Thank you, Hilton.
Thank you, dear.
Oh.
God bless.
And God bless you.
All right. And everyone, thank you for tuning into Divine Times. This is Hilton Milan. We'll see you in the light. Tracy.